Welcome everybody to Planning Commission meeting for the 9th of October 2024. We have 6 commissioners present, and I've asked Commissioner Hamudi to give our invocation.
My grandfather and heaven, we're grateful for this chance we have to attend Planning Commission meeting and for the good citizens of Payson that we represent and who we get the chance to listen to. We're grateful for this chance to review those items that have been brought before us. Pray that my blessings to have that chance to review those items and help to continue to move Payson forward. We love thee and ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And the next item is item 3.1, approval of the minutes for our meeting the 25th. Discussion on the minutes from previous meeting. We have a motion.
What did we say?
September 25th.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hamudi. All in favor by yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment on that? Yeah, I know that you just, I want it on the record, that in previous council meeting, or not previous council meeting, previous commission meeting, there was an applicant, or there was someone that came up and spoke. That person, and I want this on the record, was living in and owns property in Salem. That wasn't necessarily reflected in those minutes, but I think it's important that those notes and the meeting minutes from this time reflect that person's comment, and most of the content of their concern was surrounded in Payson or in Salem City, not Payson.
Are we referring to Jackie Larson?
Yes.
Okay.
I move to make an amended motion to amend the minutes to reflect that and approve that.
Second.
And all in favor of the amended motion? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And next is item 4 is the public forum for any item that's not on the agenda. And if you'd like an agenda, there's one in the back pockets there. We'll be covering those here in a minute. If there's something not on the agenda you'd like to address us about, you're welcome to step up to the microphone. I don't see anybody. We have somebody online here for an agenda item. Okay. Being no public forum items, we will move on to item 5.1. It is a public hearing for Little Creek subdivision, request by Austin Larson to apply the IO infill overlay to Utah County parcel 080470009 and approximately 398 R175 residential. That is our presentation.
All right. As was stated, the request is for the infill overlay zone. That this is the only request. Would, and that would be to do it. That's there, 398 North 400 East. Tracking. I don't know if you can see this picture that well, but this is looking directly at where the home would potentially be placed. So you can see that.
Just lost hope.
Yep.
With that powerful house was built.
Maybe that's it. There we go.
Just temperamental.
So anyway, oh, wow.
Jen's analog is great.
This is looking at the property from the road, approximately looking south, but somewhat to the west as well. So, as it disappeared again.
This is why Bluetooth is better than cord.
In your packets, you had similar items that I'm showing you. But the parcel is approximately, I think it's a little over an acre. And the intent would be to, let me go back since we've got it up there. So this is the county parcel map showing the parcel that we're talking about. And this is potentially what they want to do with the property. It's subdivide at this dotted line here. And then the existing home would remain as is, and this would be the lot for that. And then a new home would potentially be built here where you can see this floor plan. What is being requested is for reduced setbacks. So you probably cannot see it on here, but I think it's about on the so this request would just be for the latitude to have. The key point that we wanted to point out with this is they intend to put the garage 5 feet. So that way it'll still have plenty of room for parking in a driveway there. A little bit closer. The rear yard would be relatively small, but as you can see, that side yard would be very large. Any questions on this?
If I'm looking at this right, the lot line is quite a ways back off the curb and everything anyway, so there's still a significant amount of property in front of the lot line before you get to the road.
Is there any possibility in the future to in between? No, there's a stream that goes right, probably about, oh, it's right here. So there's a stream that goes right here. And so that would be very difficult to further subdivide. Plus, from what I understand, the owner of this home wants to put a large shed shop right here. Any other questions? Yeah, we have our engineering department look at that as well as our title.
Water superintendent.
Yeah, our water superintendent look at that. And as long as he said, as long as he can have an easement to be able to clean out the clear channel there, that he didn't really have any concerns with it. There isn't necessarily a high water mark here. Designated. The new lot would be larger lot size for the zone. To point out is with this, probably curb gutter and sidewalk where you can see all along the front. Now, and he'll install it all the way to this is now and existing along. It'll be some significant improvements to public infrastructure and storm drainage in that area. Only with we didn't want to have anything in the area that would actually be sitting on the ground.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of separation vertically as well.
So I just included there's actually some wells and sections. Yeah, it's actually a very efficient way to use the property. They've done a good job of showing how to do that. So this is just a front facade view of the others, but the other drawings aren't really good. So I just have some potential findings that you could include in the kind of motion that I'm showing here. For example, property in a portion of benefit from further development into the existing. I misquote is over a half acre, so the two lots and 12,000 approximately, which are great minimum lot sizes for the zone. And then I mentioned about the curb cut. Applicant, if they get approved, scratch all that subdivision process. Any further questions?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure. Do that.
That'll have to be verified.
Chain walls to get as much. Maybe even have a retaining wall design that doesn't. And like I said, that's not even tested. Internally.
Michael, can I ask, what's the recommendation from staff?
Staff recommends approval as presented.
Applicant want to say anything on this project or?
We're gonna take the curb and gutter and sidewalk a little further. The current owner of the home wants to do all in front of it. Wants to extend the hall. Down in front of his house. Be all the way around the block.
Side of the street.
It'll actually start, yeah, it'll start up at that property marker. It won't start down. All of his concrete sidewalk is just really bad right there.
I will entertain a motion to open the short public hearing.
I'd like to,
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by primary, all in favor, by yes.
yes,
This is a public hearing. If there's something you'd like to address about this item, you're welcome to step up to the microphone and share your thoughts. Not sure if our online participant is here for this item or the next one.
It doesn't appear so.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing on 5.
I'd like to make that motion to close the public hearing.
By Mr. Adams, all in favor, by yes?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Oh, you
Any discussion?
Bill is to use the property. It allows the property to be used. In a way. It's actually quite innovative. Utilize a piece of property that.
Recommendation to the city council.
I make a motion on the Little Creek subdivision, request by Austin Larson, planning IO infill overlay to Utah County parcel, to send it to the city council with a positive recommendation.
I would add that the reason for the setbacks reduced.
Second, Commissioner Beecher, all in favor, by yes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, move on to city council. Yeah. Next is item 5.2. This is a Payson Business Park subdivision request by Keith Smith on behalf of Canada SPD LLC. Application on 5 Payson Business Park subdivision. Separate ownership of units. I guess.
So the reason why we're here tonight is because we've had a previous condominium project done and that the lot be vacated from the subdivision for it condominium. And that one was handled at city council for two reasons. One, there were easements and things that were potentially changing, but also two, city council has the opportunity to hear those and they're what's happening much. This is essentially the same thing, except there is no easements that are changing. There is no decisions or anything that are happening. They're actually adding an easement to this. And you look through the code, and that's not something that requires city council to necessarily. We're coming here tonight, it's just for the, this is a decision you're making, it's not going on to city council. So the approval of the planning commission vacating this said law from this subdivision. That's the thing. From there, we can do the rest as far as minimizing and getting condominium. A little bit of context if the map ever stays up. I will zoom in for you on the property. This is in the business park. So you can see the little pinpoint.
Guys, this is.
So if you're, I'll use words instead of images. If you're familiar with the plunder building, this is just a little bit to the west of that. Yes. And so the intent then is to vacate that. And so when we got this up, we'll just kind of zoom in for you to see that. And this building is correct. So you can see where I put the little point and there's the little finger there, little hand. That's the property. And as we talked about, this is only to vacate lot 5 from the Payson Business Park in Black. That's all we're deciding tonight, and it's not going on to council. Any further questions? If not, staff recommends approval.
The only question I have is any about this kind of transaction that red flags?
Not that I'm aware of. Robert, do you have any thoughts come to your mind?
Well, this is at the request of.
Ultimately, this comes down to ownership versus renters, right? And so by condominiumizing, then each of the owners in the building.
I will say that this whole application and some of the others has actually made us rethink some of the processes that we do internally at the outset of some of these buildings. Like we recognize that there will likely be additional concrete tilt-up office warehouse space buildings that will be constructed in the future, and the idea of those is that a tenant can come in and rent any portion or all of the building, right? The problem comes in this after the fact type of condominiumization where then maybe all of the sewer connections aren't there that would be required in order to condominiumize to the way that they want to. So in the future, we're going to start putting on our plats that says, if you have any inclination of having separate ownership of the individual building in the future, you need to plan for that now, let us know, and then install like grease traps, connections, all of those types of things. Because theoretically, under our code, they can come in as one single entity. And we allow that, and that's what they pushed for. Unfortunately, when they come back, then they want to have individual ownership of these individual parts of the building, but then it becomes extremely difficult to add sewer connection grease trap connections as they need them, because at the outset they said, oh no, we want this all to be one building because it's cheaper to build it that way. But terrible myopic foresight. Just anecdotal information.
So are you?
So the applicant actually is online. He can talk to that, but what we're gonna do is they're gonna record their condominium CCNRs. And in those CCNRs, they're gonna have a statement that it's gonna be something that's uneditable without city approval. And that statement's basically gonna state to this effect that if any entity that comes to purchase one of the units or use one of those units and needs some sort of a treatment system such as a grease trap, it will be at their expense to install it.
They would have signed a contract with him, saying they have three straps that he buy that on.
Yeah, so every owner that buys a unit will agree to the CCNRs that are approved for the condominium plat. And by agreeing to that, yes, they are agreeing that they would also agree to all of the terms in there. That one I just stated.
That's kind of interesting. Now we've got all the parking lot and all that other stuff in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible, but it would just be added work if some additional infrastructure would be needed.
Definitely less than ideal. That's why we want to,
Just to turn that business, hey, this is the right location because I need a grease trap, whatever, and therefore this is a good location to do it.
Another thing is water and sewer. I mean, well, we're talking sewer, but I'm talking your power and water coming in now. Are they get all separate for that building for each unit?
They would, I think they've got, Keith, are you there? Do you want to address that?
Okay, sorry. I'm having a really hard time hearing the question and following along, but could you repeat the question?
I think the question basically summarized around water and power, and are there going to be individual hookups for that, or is it going to be shared, or how are you going to do that with the condominium?
Yeah, with the condominium association, it's similar to any condo project in anywhere in the valley, where it's going to, I mean, there's going to be one water main to the building, and then from that point, it will then be the price of the water will then be allocated based upon the square footage that the certain owners have, is how much they're going to pay. So it's kind of pro rata is how they pay for the water, the sewer, and all utilities.
City staff doesn't have any concern with that. The sewer is, we did have concern because we want a point source if there is some sort of going into the system that may be damaging to the system.
And yeah, and we've been talking with the city about trying to, restrict those, and it limits the type of people that would be coming to this location. But we understand the issues that the city's presented, so we're comfortable with amending the CCNRs accordingly.
Questions for the applicant or staff?
No public.
No public hearing necessary.
Where you take them away from some subdivision they are now, you're pulling them out of that subdivision. So that you start their own subdivision basically.
It would basically be a parcel that's not part of a subdivision anymore. Then from there, they would condominiumize the individual units of the building. So it would be a parcel with condominium units on it. And that's very typical in many parcels throughout the country.
it's not an oddity at all.
No, and actually, this is at request of the county recorder's office to vacate it prior to the condominium. recorded.
How about we address that? So,
Basically formality.
Comment, we'll take action on item 5.2. Action on item 5.2.
I hope that we, approve block 5 of Payson Park subdivision plat 2. And authorize city staff to,
By Commissioner Headley, all in favor by yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That takes place. Any commissioner staff reports?
Jill has one.
Yes. Okay. So hopefully the projector will continue to work. Okay. Many of you probably received my email about an update with the Payson Downtown Gateway plan. We had an open house last Thursday. Some of you attended that. I just wanted to give a little bit of background to provide some guidance as you review the project in the coming weeks. We've been working on this project for about a year now, and just thought it would be helpful just to take a few minutes. I know this is not an agenda item, and so I don't want to get too in depth, but just want to provide a little bit of background. So as you're looking at the project website, or once you receive the document, you've got the background in your mind. And it says it in the document as well, but sometimes it's easier just to discuss. So just as a quick update, many of you have probably heard about the new freeway interchange that has been in process for many years now. There was an environmental impact statement that was done, completed in 2017. The record of decision was done in 2018. So this is something that we've been talking about for a long time, about how we can provide additional transportation facilities in our community, and how we can plan for the increased traffic numbers that we see in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so this was, so you've probably seen this. You've got I-15 that bisects this map right here. And then everything in the yellow here is the outline of that record of decision of where it shows that additional interchange and the belt route that will connect the highway system, how that is going to be configured generally. There's still some work that needs to be done and design, and a lot of things will come through that process. But several years ago, when we started looking at the opportunities that this additional freeway interchange presented, we also recognized that it presents other challenges in our community. So this is where the need comes up. So looking at, hey, we've got a new freeway interchange, we've got greenfield development, we can have expanded economic development, we have better traffic movement, can provide for growth, new transit, all those things. Then we started looking at, okay, we're creating a bypass, a road that will bypass our community. So all of that traffic that's going on Interstate 15, and if they want to get off to go to East Payson, or if they want to go to Salem or Woodland Hills, or we're creating, even though right now there's a lot of congestion on the internal, on the core of our community, this would create a bypass. And so we started looking at it to say, okay, as far as distribution of traffic, it's good, but what does that do to the core of our city? What does that do to existing North Main? What does it do to those businesses that are North Main that depend on that traffic that's coming in our community? What does that do to historic downtown Payson? So we started looking at, okay, we've got these opportunities, but how can we look at our North Main corridor? How can we look at the core of Payson City and still provide vitality to that area as we start to see new growth around this new interchange? And so that was the purpose of doing this evaluation of the Payson Downtown Gateway. And so about a year ago, we hired a consultant team to help us evaluate this corridor. So from the freeway south along Main Street, going all the way down to historic downtown. And so that's where we've looked at, what would be the traffic modeling? How much traffic do we anticipate will go on this new interchange? What will still come into town? What are the opportunities for new development, redevelopment, better utilization of the property? How can we still provide enough energy around there for those businesses that are there, for them to continue to thrive there? We don't want to necessarily see them move to other locations of our community. We still see a lot of value in that corridor for our community. Another thing that came out of that too was just identifying our local character or the character of our community. We've heard for years and years and years, and we've had these conversations before of, is what makes Payson so special, or at least this area in the downtown area, is our small town feel. So we started to evaluate, well, what creates that small town feel? And when you go along Main Street, even with all of its challenges, with its traffic, with its speeds, everything else that comes along with it, there is a feeling on that North Main, and whether it's the residential uses, whether it's the historic homes that are on Main Street, it could be the farmer's market that is on 400 North Main, whatever, and it may be a combination. But there's something that just gives Payson that small town feel when you go along that corridor. And so we also looked at that with this study of identifying, okay, what are the possibilities near the interchange? Because there's always economic development opportunities around a freeway interchange. But then how do we maintain that small town feel? So you have that moment when you're like, oh, I'm home. We're here. It's different than any other Main Street. We talk about that a lot with our historic Main Street because it's one-way street. So very different from the other main streets in Santa Quinn or Spanish Fork or Springville. But there's still something else along that corridor, and we're looking at identifying solutions to how can we still support existing uses, or how can we adapt to the growth that we will see, not only around the interchange, but along that entire corridor between those two distinct development nodes. You have the area around the freeway, and you're going to have historic downtown. How do we connect? How do we connect those? How do we create enough interest for someone to not only get off the freeway, but then go one more block south or go around the corner? And so just wanted to give a little bit of background and context to first the challenge, and then some of the things that we were evaluating. So you'll see that in the document when you receive that document, and then when we come to you for a recommendation. But just a couple of resources I want you to think about, as we're gearing up for that adoption. We do have this, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background on this interchange. We're moving forward, or UDOT is moving forward on, they're getting ready to kickstart the design process for that interchange. So that's something that will take place over the next year or so. But a couple of other things, and I included this in an email that I sent to you a couple of weeks ago. But there is a project website or a web page that this may look familiar if you had a chance to look at it. If you didn't, it's fine. I've got it in an email. Go back and find my email and look at it. But just this should provide you the introduction. It'll provide you information on open houses, what's happened thus far on transportation. So you can see all of them there. But just wanted to make sure that that resource is there where you can gather more information between now and when you receive the full document. And then I wanted to talk about the open house that happened last Thursday for just a brief minute. But another thing that I wanted to touch on as part of this effort, we recognize that connectivity for all modes of transportation are really important in our community, and there's some areas where we're lacking. We've been focused a lot on roads. We've been focused a lot on transit, especially with bringing Front Runner South. But also active transportation facilities for someone who wants to bike or if they want to walk. So as part of this this effort, we will be proposing to you to recommend and the city council to adopt the very first active transportation plan for Payson City. So even though the gateway plan is focused on this corridor, as you can see over here in the yellow, you know, which is the area immediately around the interchange and then extending down to 100 North. But we are also developing a plan for our trails, our pathways, our bike lanes throughout the entire community to connect the community and to connect to the regional system. And so making sure that we're connecting the trail systems to the communities around us, make sure that we are contemplating any type of regional facility. And so there'll be two different elements to that, but they're very integral. We wanted to make sure that one, we can get people within this current study area, but then how do we get them on the other side of the freeway? And we talked about that with the station area plan and some other planning efforts we have in the area, which will also come to you in the future. But we have some big barriers in our community in order to connect neighborhoods or business districts, and now it's Interstate 15 and railroad tracks. So there will be some recommendations in that plan as well of as we start to implement these plans in these districts or other planning areas that we've adopted within the recent years. How are we making sure that we're always considering the bigger picture, even though at times we're bringing you a very small proposal? We want to make sure we're always talking about how does it fit into the bigger picture, not get distracted from the issue at hand, but always keeping in the back of our minds how we're connecting all these dots, because there are a lot of planning efforts that are occurring. We'll do better at providing you updates. But with that, for those of you that were able to attend the open house last week, just curious on what were your thoughts? Was there anything that stood out to you that you liked? Do you feel like there was something that was missing that maybe just wasn't in the presentation that we should focus on as we come to you for a formal presentation at a recommendation?
I love that Robert was pointing out, at least once we saw all of the things, the drawings of where things were going to be, just where they fit onto the current map. And then I loved also having the dots to be able to just say, here's a need for improvement and stuff, and then also what we liked and what we didn't like. I liked everything, but I appreciated. I was a little sad that we didn't have more people come, but I'm hoping that that was just a scheduling conflict. I heard like 60.
There's about 60. Yeah, it wasn't terrible.
Well, just for a gateway plan, yeah. And so, but I loved at least having a chance. And then it was cool to see all of the UVU students there, just kind of seeing something that I'm not at a liberty to say maybe.
68 and 24.
No, and I appreciate that feedback, Commissioner, because yeah, just understanding, you know, how it fits into that bigger picture, and, you know, having staff guidance to provide some information there. That was one thing that I noticed, is put a lot of information out there, and sometimes, you know, unless somebody's been following the project, I mean, there were some there that I had spoken with that I think this was the first introduction they had to this, and we're at the tail end, and so we didn't provide a lot of backstory. And so we want to make sure that, you know, whether it's through the notices or the presentation or whatever it may be, that we're providing some good feedback. And then just another thing that you said that just triggered something Robert and I had talked about is with this study areas you can see on this map here, because it is so linear, you know, and it takes in such a long space and different opportunities within those areas, we actually are creating like sub-districts. So you'll see that in the plan also that we're saying, okay, what's there in the red is closer to I-15. That is where you're going to see your freeway commercial. That's where you're going to see your on and off. That's where, so there's different opportunities there in that gateway district. Then there's that center area between like 500 north and 200 north, where you have a lot of those detached single family homes. You have, you know, a variety of architectural design and a lot of residential use that's occurring there, and some, you know, single, you know, most, well, it's single family, but there's some that are owner occupied, and there's a lot that are rental, you know, and some have been converted into, you know, multiple rental units. And then you have that area down in historic downtown. So as we evaluated, they are three distinct areas, and we felt that there is three distinct purposes along this corridor. And so you'll see that in here also. So if you look at the webpage, as you study this, just understand that's the way that it's structured. That it's like, okay, what are the opportunities and challenges for each of these areas, and providing recommendations for that.
And just jumping onto that as well, at the open house, the focus of the map was only here, right? So I think there was some, I think there was some question about, well, is this all that the plan is going to be? The answer is no. There are threefold, you know, kind of evaluation of this, but that was all that was demonstrated, was that future concept type of thing. And I think that threw people off a little bit.
Planning. As we're going discussion, we'll do an update.
It's like you've been on this commission for a while, Blair.
Yes. And we're working on that. We are anticipating, as we've been discussing internally at staff, there's a lot that has happened in the last 4 years. Our last general plan update, it was adopted in 2020. And we started it probably 2 years prior to the adoption. Yeah. And so when you think back about your time on the Planning Commission, whether it's been a year or if it's been 8 years, we've done a lot of planning. We've had a lot of discussions. We've refined a lot of things. Some of that has been our own doing as staff or the city council decision. Some of it has been outside agencies that have updated their plans and then have determined that we need more transit or, you know, whatever else it is. So it's ever evolving. So yes, you are right on the right track, that we anticipate that not only the adoption of this plan, but the station area plan, which we're hoping will be finalized by the end of the year. The Spring Creek, you know, out in Commissioner Adams, you know, neighborhood, you know, the Spring Creek plan that was adopted about a year or a little more ago. All of these we now need to take, and we need to make sure they mesh. I mean, we do our best with each of these separate planning efforts, but you're absolutely right. We've done more planning, we have more guidance and more direction, and our general plan needs to reflect that. So we're hoping that we can get these plans completed the end of this year, some of them next year, and then we will kick off. The plan is that we will kick off the general plan update in this time next year.
We're actually submitting for some grant money to hopefully assist us in doing that.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if there was any other comments that.
So the only comment I have is I would really love to see that we think about possibly having an area for
area. That's part of it, because to me, this is it's actually a perfect place for the city center. This is not a good city center. That's just me.
Noted. I like new city center.
Well, I didn't say we can afford it. I just want to make sure we don't exclude it from the plan.
Right. Good comment.
I'm planning on robbing banks.
Big bank.
I hope you didn't speak loud in your microphone. Thank you, Jill, for
There's
bringing.
a little background. Feel free, as I put in the email, I mean, as you're looking at it and you have questions, don't feel like you have to wait until the public meeting. If you feel like you need to dive into it a little deeper and you want to have a dialogue with staff to understand it more, feel free to reach out to Robert, reach out to myself. We can both meet with you. We can meet individually. But we want to be able to give you, it's a big effort, you know, and these plans, we put a lot of time into it and staff's working on them daily. And then all of a sudden we come to you and say,
So is this?
adopt it. We were hopeful that we would be able to bring this to your next meeting. As we have been reviewing the plan, we feel like we need to add some additional substance. And so we're going to continue to work with the consultant team to get that in there. So it is.
That brings me to something that I wanted to bring up. So November currently we're the 13th is our like countywide training or South County training, right? That'll be in Springville. Did they say 6? 5:30. Have they given us a location?
No, he just did just to save the date.
Yeah, so to save the date, November 13th, sometime in the evening, they're going to feed you and train you. Because of that, though, and the fact that our next meeting in November would be the day before, oh, that's perfect. So that our next meeting would have been the day before Thanksgiving, so we'll cancel that. But in order to kind of go through some of these things, we just wanted to have you look at your calendars and see if a special meeting on November 12th, which is the Tuesday night, might be possible. And we would just put this on the agenda and have a conversation about it.
I'm out of the country, so I mean, the rest of you guys can decide.
Okay. Duly noted. Yeah, and we'll reach out to you as well, but just kind of getting it on your radar out there. Can I?
Yeah, the only,
Oh.
yeah, no, you can.
Go.
Last comment was, they would like to RSVP by October 23rd. So, I'm sure Marty will reach out and just make sure our county knows us so we can give them a count by for Springville. Yes. And so, anyway, you know where we're at. Feel free to call or stop by.
So I just have 2 things. Next Wednesday is the ribbon cutting and block party for Payson Main Street. We hope that you'll have a few minutes to attend that. It should be a fun evening. We're running around crazy trying to get this all pulled together. And 5 o'clock. It's gonna go pretty quickly right at the first. There'll be a short parade, and then get that out of the way, and then the ribbon is gonna go across, and we'll cut that small ceremony at 5:30, and then there'll be activities and opportunities to buy dinner from downtown restaurants and all sorts of things that evening, and lots of giveaways. There will be a small vintage car show. We're trying to fill up all of the parallel stalls with some cool old cars and things like that. So we hope that you bring your families and just enjoy the evening. The other thing that I just wanted to share really quickly, for those of you who are attending the
APA.
APA conference. I have a printed agenda for you, but I just wanted to point out in the agenda. So when you see, it lists all of the different classes that are available in the agenda, and it gives a description, a short description here in this agenda, but then as you move on down through the agenda, it gives a longer description of where it's going to be and everything like that. But what I wanted to point out was if you look for this symbol, the citizen planner, those are the classes that are designed for folks like yourself to give a little bit more background and context to what you're doing as a citizen planner, as a planning commissioner. And so I would just recommend that if you see one of those, by all means, if you see something interesting, attend that class. But if you see that one, that just lets you know that it's kind of geared towards you and your role in the planning process. Okay. That's all I have. Any questions for us?
I have one question.
Sure.
That relates to an email that I saw saying that cybersecurity training Thursday, November 24th at 6 p.m. was mandatory. Is that mandatory for planning commissioners as well?
I think so.
Okay.
Because you have a Payson.org account.
So I threw that on my calendar. I just wanted to.
I would highly recommend that you attend. Scare tactics are alive and well. Every time I attend that cybersecurity, I'm just like, I'm moving to the middle of the desert and unplugging everything.
And Commissioner, I believe, maybe you were just specifically wanting to be there to say, I think there's 3 sessions that day.
Mhm.
So if the morning or the afternoon work better, I mean, usually evening works better if you're working till 5 o'clock or whatever, but there is a morning and an afternoon session if that works better with your schedule.
Thanks for that reminder. Yeah, the only one that was going to work was at 6 o'clock. So I figured, and being in a bank, I know that, phishing and smishing and smushing and all that stuff just scares me a lot too. So I'm fine.
I generally walk around in oblivion and ignorance, and then I attend that class and I freak out for a little while.
Then you go to click on the link and then it goes, and I'm like, really? I'm just trying to follow something to find out for the next meeting.
So that has just transcribed into me just not answering email anymore.
I
just don't open it.
Yeah, unless it comes from one of you four. It goes to trash. Great. Thank you for the clarification.
And then just kind of calendaring, there'll be only one planning commission meeting in December as well. Merry Christmas. That's right.
Motion to adjourn then.
All of us.
All in favor by
Yes.
Go home anyway.